Hello and welcome to Invest Universal. I am Deborah, your host, and this is Girl Power, a podcast hosted by women for women to inspire, support, and empower you to invest in yourself and become all that you are meant to be. Make sure to subscribe, click that little notification bell, and now sit back and enjoy the episode because I want you to invest. Now, for today, the topic is all about tuning into yourself and assessing your relationship with food. I'm super excited because this topic is very near and dear to me, as I am sure it is for a lot of you. But before I introduce our guests, I have to clarify that there are those of us who live to eat, and there are those of us who eat to live. I am in the latter category as I have spent decades suffering from severe eating disorders. So as we move through the conversation today, I want to continue for you to be honest with yourself and check in with yourself. And now, without further ado, it is time to peel back the layers and dive into the hopefully not so taboo topic of disordered food behaviors. My guests today are certified diet recovery and eating physiology coaches. They are the founders of a very, very successful Facebook group dedicated to helping others be empowered with food and live a diet-free life. Based out of Colorado and South Carolina, they are mothers, entrepreneurs, and advocates for food freedom confidence. Welcome to the show, ladies, Sierra and Hannah. How are you?
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. So, the topic of developing a sustainable and healthy food relationship is incredibly massive. So for today, I thought it'd be helpful to highlight some not so obvious ways in which disordered eating can kind of creep up. But before we go there, can you give our audience a brief overview of how you both came into this field?
Yeah, I'll start. So I was an athlete growing up, and when I went into college, I went on an extreme diet. And that one extreme diet and multiple other ones growing up really just changed my relationship with food. It became very disordered. I became very afraid of food. I was fighting my body. I was fighting food like crazy for many, many years after that. And I started to want to heal my relationship with food and be healthier and feel better. And I came across eating psychology, the Institute of Eating Psychology, and I just fell in love. I felt like I was home. I was like, oh my gosh, it can be easy. Oh my gosh, I can actually enjoy my food and I can feel good about it. And I've been teaching yoga for 20 years, and so it went perfect with my yoga background. And it's funny because I was a yoga teacher, and at the same time, I was not eating the best and feeling the best about what I was putting in my body and how I was treating myself. And so moving into eating psychology with the yoga background really transformed my life and my relationship with food. So that's kind of how I got into eating psychology, and I love it because it's just so much more than the food, right? Like food is half the story.
Yeah.
You as the eater is the other half, and that right there, like your first question, that usually is the part that we miss the most because we often try to cure our food stuff with food rather than looking at us, our environment, our behaviors, our beliefs, and everything that goes along with that. So I love the work that Sierra and I do because we go into that. We go into the psychology of it and also the nutrition side, right? They kind of combine together and they create this beautiful marriage, and people have transformations. It's the most amazing thing.
For sure. So I also have a similar story to Hannah of just kind of starting. We have clients that have started dieting and have started trying to change their body from very, very young ages. We've heard it all. We've heard as babies, they were put on diets and, my journey started around high school when I was also very thin, very athletic, and I went through puberty and I gained weight and I was becoming a woman and I felt like this is so bad. I'm gaining weight. And so I started restricting and trying not to eat in high school. That didn't work so well for me. So I started binge eating and then purging. And then it, basically evolved into a full-blown eating disorder. And I struggled with bulimia for many, many years, all hidden. No one knew about it. It was very shameful for me. And I thought to fix it, I would do a fitness competition. I thought, okay, well, once I have the perfect body, then I won't have to diet anymore. And then I won't have to like binge eat and I won't have to like have bulimia anymore. So I thought, like Hannah had mentioned, like I would use food to fix my food problem. What I didn't realize was like all the psychology, all the inner work that needed to happen with that, right? So I did this bikini competition and there I am on stage in the best shape of my life. And I'm standing under these neon lights with this fake orange tan. And I'm like, it's still not good enough. I'm still not thin enough. I'm still not good enough. And here I am in the best shape of my life. I'm still miserable. And so kind of like Hannah, like I was scrolling social media one day and saw this advertisement for eating psychology. And it's like, oh, that sounds cool. And, really it totally changed my life. It changed so much and really diving into the eating psychology and then later into diet recovery and weight neutral coaching and working with, hundreds of clients at this point between Hannah and I over the last 5 years. So I think our own disordered eating and our own struggles with food is what led us to where we are today and being able to help people. And so it just gives us so much life. And so it just, we're so excited to do what we do because we've been there and we get it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really, what it's like. So what better way to step into somebody's shoes or your clients and be able to go there, peel back those layers, and then have a program for them to help them. That's just, Thank you for sharing, both of you ladies. I relate very, very much so. All right. So when it comes to binge eating, why do words matter?
Sierra, go for that one.
Yeah. Binge eating, and I feel like there's binge eating, words matter. Here's why. Because everyone's idea of a binge is different. Like a binge could be like 2 cookies to somebody, or a binge could be like 3 bags of cookies, right? So in our work that we do together in the diet recovery world, I actually prefer not labeling eating at all, right? Like I don't even like to call it a binge. And it is tricky, right? It's tricky psychology. But that's what we do in our programs is really help rewire our brain, and words do matter. So if anyone feels like they struggle with binge eating or like they're even like overeating a lot, like this, and people describe binge eating as like a wolf, like something takes over them and it feels very compulsive and it just takes over and they're just eating and eating and there's no feelings. They don't even remember, right? Like it's very intense. And so what we do is we call it ritualizing the binge. And this is an eating psychology principle as well, but it's basically taking the power away from the binge and the food and instilling the power back in you. So rather than calling it a binge, we destigmatize it, right? It's not wrong. It's not bad. You're not a bad person. Like, there's really a whole process into that. And I could take probably forever to explain it, but really I would say like the top 2 things would be to destigmatize it. So meaning like, don't label it bad or wrong. Like you're not bad if you're binge eating. Okay. Like there's nothing wrong with you. If you are binge eating, you have triggered a survival state. You have probably been restricted before. You've probably just come off of a cleanse or a diet. Like binge eating is not normal behavior with food. If you're binge eating, like that's a big red flag that you need some support and some help to like help the binge eating. So again, nothing wrong or bad. It's just a symptom. Binge eating is a symptom of disordered eating. Whether you have an eating disorder or you're just like, I'm just a binger, like there's something going on that we got to kind of discover. So I would say number one thing would be like to destigmatize it. And then when words matter, we like to say instead of a binge, we kind of try to take the binge word out. Like, yep, I ate 3 bags of cookies. That's it. Like we're really trying to normalize it and not, because binge is such a negative word, right? It's so negative. It's like, I'm out of control. But it's like, no, we gotta like, again, destigmatize, take the word binge out. And again, we have a process for that, but that would probably be my biggest tip.
That is very, very powerful. That was just, it is negative. It is, when you're in that mode, like you said, it's a wolf. Like you can't think of anything. You're like blinded. You're just like in this zone, and you are feeling shame and all these negative emotions. So for them to put this label on it that makes you feel bad for something that is a response to a stimulus or a trigger in some sort of way, when there's nothing wrong. We get triggered all the time in life, good ways and bad ways. This is just information that your body's giving you, and that you can then use as a tool, as information, and then help you go seek out what you need to.
Exactly. I love how you describe that. It's information. It's not wrong or bad. It's just like, if all of a sudden, and I don't think I have like binged in years. Like it's been years, but I also don't label it as a binge anymore. So it's interesting, right? Like my relationship with food is really easy now since I've recovered. But like if I ever find myself like eating a lot, I'll be like, oh, I wonder why I'm doing this. And it's really more curious, like, wow, I'm like eating a lot of food right now. Like, am I like, what happened earlier in my day, right? There's no judgment. There's no labeling. It's information. It's getting curious about like, why am I doing this behavior, rather than like, gosh, I'm so messed up. What's wrong with me? Right. It's really just going back into getting curious.
It is. And my camera just died. Did you guys just see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Technology. Let's see if we can get this going again. Oh, goodness. How does that work? Did that work? That did not work. Did that work? Oh no. Ladies, I am not the most tech genius. I've never had this happen.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Woo, I'm back. All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'll keep it, keep it interesting. All right, well.
Real. Yeah, that's life.
Yeah, right. We're all humans here. All right, so let's use that as a segue to go on to, what does someone do if they feel guilty or off track after eating? This kind of plays into the binge eating conversation we were having.
Yeah, I mean, so it has a lot to do with the words, right? Like what Sierra was talking about was destigmatizing. So really watching what we say about food. Oftentimes we label food good or bad. And so when it's bad, we're bad, which then brings the guilt, right? So it's like this cycle that goes round and round. We feel bad and we feel guilty. So we're like, oh, whatever, I'll just eat some more. And then we just keep, it's this perpetual cycle that keeps going around. And so think about this too. On the opposite, if we're eating something and we think it's good, then we think, oh my gosh, I got this all in control. I'm so good. I'm so great. And then you have this fear about messing up. Then that perfectionism comes in because you're like, oh my God, I've been so good. And so if I go off this, then I'm falling off the wagon and I'm going to lose track. And then that's usually when the binge cycle takes over, right? Because now we're like stressed out. Now we're like, okay, I got to be really strict and I got to be really perfect at this. And if I go off, I'm bad. So it's like this really restrictive if you think about how like labeling food good or bad and how that will throw you off the wagon or off the train. And so Sierra and I always are talking about just stay off the train, get on a different train, because it's true. Like, we're not good or bad based on what we eat. Food is actually very neutral. Food is food. Food is not like this high and mighty thing. We put food on pedestals, right? Yeah, some foods might have more nutrients than others, but in actuality, one is not like superior. Because if we put that pedestal on it, then we're making ourselves bad or wrong or awful for eating it or not eating it, right? So it's interesting. Like, the whole labeling, the whole words that matter is so important for us to really just think of food as like neutral. Okay, how is this going to make me feel? Like, what, and like, this is what we teach of learning how to tune into your body. So you begin to use your own guidance system to say, okay, I feel like, yeah, I need a tomato and avocado, or I need a good hamburger. I haven't eaten a lot lately. It's tuning into your body and what it needs. That way, it's coming from this place of authenticity. It's coming from this place of like knowing yourself, and you choose food. And when food isn't good or bad and you're not labeling it and it doesn't have this hierarchy, then it's so much easier to listen to what you need in that moment. Some days it's going to be a salad, some days it might be a steak, some days it might be a cupcake. So it doesn't really matter, because you're tuning in and you're not thinking that you're good or bad for what you're putting in your body, which takes the pressure away, right? Like, we put so much pressure on ourselves on what we are eating that it has to look a certain way, because there's so much information out there about nutrition. Like, it can be very confusing. One day they're like, eat this. Next day they're like, don't eat that. That's really bad. And so we teach a lot about just slowing down, right? Like, slowing down, breathing, listening to your body, and then using that to guide you, because it's so much easier than trying to think it through, trying to listen to that, and then that's why we just get so like off track. The best way I can explain it.
Yeah, that was beautiful. You said a couple things. The first was the perfectionist, the black and white thinking, triggering, well, them being perfectionist, which I think is a big characteristic of disordered eating, as opposed to other addictions, which I guess under the umbrella of addiction, you could say coping strategies, but food specific seems to be that perfectionist element to it. And like, you almost know that you're not doing something correctly, but when you do circle back and then you can start listening to the cues of your body. I've actually found that was a huge part of my own journey in recovery too, was that intuitive eating element. What were the cravings? When was I really hungry? And getting familiar with like some days I did want a cupcake, other days I didn't want it at all. And then other, like you said, and I think society does advertise a lot of misleading information, labeling food as bad, and I think that can play into the mind, your confusion, especially in the onset stages of getting clear on, how it's impacting your life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. You ladies are just doing such good things. So super excited to have you both here, because this is just a huge topic. I mean, there's so many layers to it. So what is your advice to someone who is feeling anxious about getting their perfect body or summer body? I mean, it is summertime.
Oh, this one's juicy. I would say, like, blame diet culture. Like, if you lived on a desert island with no other human interaction, no social media, you would not be thinking about your summer bod. Like, you would be like, like, you would just be living your life, and like, you
right.
drinking coconuts and like having a great time. You would not be concerned with the shape of your body. Like, this is absolutely cultural brainwashing. So And that's hard too, because I know that answer is not, it's not super helpful, right? Because you're like, well, okay, but we live in a culture that is obsessed with summer bodies and like getting in shape. And because I think it's like the diet industry and diet culture kind of survives on this premise that you're never okay. Like you always have to be striving to be better than you are right now, right? So like every time we go into this mode of like, I need to get a summer body, even just that thought of like, I need a summer body, or I need to lose weight, or I need to get into these shorts, it's kind of saying this underlying message to ourselves that I'm not okay right now. My body, who I am, is not good enough. And so it just kind of like, you're kind of always living in this place of I'm not good enough. Yeah. Every time you have this thought that I need a summer body or I need to lose weight, whatever, it just kind of takes you back to this I'm not good enough place. And that's what the diet industry makes their money off of. They make money off of you feeling crappy about yourself. So every time we buy into these like detox teas that make you crap your brains out to get a summer bod, like, I'm sorry, you're just buying into this industry that's trying to tell you that you're not good enough. And that's really hard for our culture. It's really, I mean, it's just a hard concept, especially for, like you said, perfectionists. Perfectionists are always trying to get better. And this notion and practice of being like, I am okay right now, my body right now, where I'm at in my life right now, I'm okay. I don't need to change myself is really difficult. But when we start to practice that I am okay the way I am, this like notion of needing to change your body or do this summer body cleanse diet thing starts to quiet down. And then you can just go into summer like you go into winter, like you go into autumn, like you don't even think about it. Like I didn't think about it. I wasn't like, oh my God, summer. I was like, oh, it's hot. I should probably wear shorts. Like that's it. No, it did not used to be like that, but it is possible to not have diet thoughts and changing your body rule your life. But it is hard because we are kind of salmon swimming upstream in this culture, where everyone is screaming at you to get your summer bod. Every advertisement, magazine cover, commercial, Instagram, like you're bombarded with images and you're bombarded with all this media saying you're not okay. Basically, they're all saying you're not okay as you are. Whiten your teeth, straighten your hair, get a bikini bod. Like you're constantly being bombarded. So it's like that's why we have this our group, and we kind of have this like I want to say like army, but like this community, because it's like it is hard out there. It is hard to be okay with who you are, because the whole world is kind of against that.
Yeah.
Well, our worth is dependent on our body. So like that's what kind of that's what diet culture tells us. It's like you're worthy if you look this way. You're not worthy if you look that way. And you're lazy and you're this and you're that and you shouldn't be around. You shouldn't even be out on the beach. Don't even wear a bikini, like because your body looks a certain way. And that's like, oh, it makes me so angry because every body, everyone's body is worthy to live, to participate in life, to experience things. And people get shamed all the time based on their body. People comment on people's bodies all the time, and that's not okay. Yeah, because that's like a very personal thing, right? This is my space, my body, and why are you commenting on it? That's it's not the best, and the praise that people get when they lose weight is so damaging in the long run.
Yeah, and I think too, the different bodies that they advertise are in, like in season is, this shape, next decade, this body type is going to be in season, and I think that plays into the psychology of the damage that it does, especially as women growing up. And you go through that transitional phase, the independence as you hit your teenage years. But at any point in life, you're subjected to that because you can, the hustle culture we have on top of that and more of this, it can, wear and tear. And then all of a sudden you can be in food and then just trying to like numb out from it, just to escape, to get some relief. And then that just becomes a habit, and that habit gets reinforced, and then it just goes on and on and on. And then when you stop and you like circle back, you realize that all the little thoughts that go into it and all the little triggers from the diet culture, the everything, and how it does all play into them wanting to keep you down.
Yeah.
When, we're supposed to rise on up and then give out, shine that light, right?
It's hard to shine when you're obsessed with food and your body. It's hard to do big things. I mean, I feel like a big passion of Hannah and I's is like, oh my gosh, girl, like you have so much more going for your life than obsessing about having a nice bod. Like, who cares? Like, no offense. Like on your gravestone, when you die, it's not going to be like, she had a great bod. Like, no one cares. Like, I mean, everyone cares though. That's why it is hard. But what I'm saying is that, there's so much more to life, and there's so much more to being a human than what our physical body shape is. And when we stay stuck in that obsession with our body and food, we really limit ourselves to our potential for greatness, and what we could be doing.
For sure.
A lot of our clients, like when they start to like defocus on their body and focus on like who they are, it's like their whole world opens up. They realize that they have a voice. They realize they can stand up for themselves. They realize they can put themselves first, because what they've been doing is like focusing on their body and food, and that controls them. That there's this whole other part of their life that they're not able to even tap into because they're so consumed. And so when they start working with us and they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this at work, and I'm speaking up about this, and I talked to my husband about that. And it's like they're able to now begin to express themselves in a different way and actually live their life. And they're like, oh my God, I actually can focus on this now, because I couldn't for many, many years. It's just like, kind of like I'm using food in my body to distract myself. Like they don't know that at that time, but when they start working with this, they realize they're using food in their body to distract themselves from very important things in their life that need to be attended to.
Right, for sure. For sure. Like once the food comes down, there's the whole like realizing life has gone on, and then like mourning the times that you've missed, and then sitting with that emotional pain, and then feeling like going forward and being like, oh, I get to do this now. Oh, I get to explore this. And then it builds and builds and it builds. And I've experienced that because before this, I had 2 food businesses and both didn't succeed. And now that I've moved into mobility, and onwards with that, I'm going to do more things with food, but just later on with what I had. But what I'm trying to say basically is that those 2 food ventures I was not able to bring those to the potential that they had to be because I was held back from having problems with food. And now that I have gone through several processes to get clear, the way that I'm approaching the work that I'm doing now and what I'm trying to build is absolutely 100% more focused, clear, grounded, and I'm going to gain traction. I'm going to get to where I want to be and achieve my dreams, because that's not in the way. It just feels like I can feel a mental clarity. It's just, there's no food fog. It's not there.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All right. So when it comes to someone with disordered eating, why can't gut protocol and or elimination diet wreak havoc on their health? And I apologize. I live in front of UPS, so if you can hear the trucks, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
That's a really good question.
I'll start off because I was hospitalized for having 3/4 of my colon infected, and I had been on a binge purge for 4 days straight. I mean, like it must have been 12 times a day. I could not keep food down. It was bad, and I ended up having to go to the hospital. I got they blew out pretty much all of my veins with morphine to try to take care of the pain, and then from there, they obviously cleansed me out so they could take a look what was going on, and then kept me on a liquid diet to help calm me down, antibiotics, steroids, all that stuff. And ever since then, it was one of the reasons why I ended up founding my meal delivery company, because I wanted to. I figured I had to like play with food. I had gotten allergy tested, and I was like, I have so many restrictions. What can I do? And I started playing in the kitchen, and I thought, well, if it's for me, I can help other people. And then subsequently the business went elsewhere. But the foundation of it was me exploring about what I could do within the realm of like, because you can't eliminate food like you can with an alcoholic. I'm not going to drink and life's going to, go back together once I do the work, but you have to eat. So I figured that by facing it and then moving through it, I could get clear. And to this day, I'm kind of still working through this since clearly I had an allergic reaction the other day. But
Yeah.
Speak to me what your thoughts are on that.
I feel like we probably both have something a little bit to say. This is tricky, because from a diet culture perspective, elimination diets and gut protocols they're made into diets. It's a diet. It's a restriction. Like there will be consequences physically, emotionally, mentally to any kind of restriction, whether it's medically necessary or not. Right. So I just want to be gentle with this because, there's people who are like, I had to do this, right? Or like, I do have severe allergies. We totally like honor that. And restriction of any kind, I don't care if it's an elimination diet or a gut protocol, should be option Z when you're in the process of healing your relationship with food, because it will absolutely impede the healing process because it's a restriction, right? So again, even if it's medicalized, it's still restricting.